All right, now that we've got the Europeans going to the east and exploring to access the great trade and wealth that's found there, let's look at some of the players in the east, most notably China. Let's note this. So what's going on in the east? Well, China was one of the most powerful nations and had already established itself as a main supplier of the riches coming out of the east. That's going to reach a great height during the Ming Dynasty. So let's look at Ming power for just a minute. Let's note that it was stable and expanding. The Ming had created or brought stability back to this country after Mongol rule, and it was also looking at expanding, growing as large as it's ever grown, and even looking into international efforts there as they built a great fleet with the great explorer Zheng He, spreading out Chinese influence across the Indian Ocean trade routes. In fact, the story of their naval explorations almost changes the narrative of history. What if the Chinese had reached Europe before the Europeans reached China in the 1500s? Obviously, the Chinese were much closer to that in the early 1400s, even going around the tip of the continent of Africa there. But getting out of the exploration game, getting out of the international relations game, China turned its attention instead to protecting itself, isolating itself, returning to Confucian ideals, and building the Great Wall to the north to keep the invaders from the steppe out. Despite cutting off relations, though, trade did continue. Smuggling was very profitable for many traders along that east coast of China, and so the goods were still getting out and were still attractive for Europeans to try to come east. The Qing would follow the Ming, and in doing so, they were not Chinese. They were from Manchuria, so evidently the wall the Ming had built didn't help it so much. The Qing were not Chinese. Eventually, though, these foreign rulers would be accepted as they had blended into the culture of China and accepted their bureaucracies and used their bureaucracies for effective leadership. They would continue the policies of isolation that China had been employing previously. So why is all this important? The value and opportunity available by trading with China became so desired that Europeans sought many avenues to try to get there. Not only would they sail east and access Chinese trade by going around Africa, but of course we know other Europeans would sail to the west across what would be the Atlantic Ocean and find things that perhaps they had not even intended to find, and opening avenues that were not their initial focal point. So stay tuned, and we'll talk about China next. Sorry, we'll talk about Japan next.